patrons. This is your virtual herald, Jerusha Alaon, known in the SCA as the Virtual Herald, coming to you live from the barony of Star Coffin in the Kingdom of Kaid, modernly known as good old Lost Wages, Nevada. And this is the Herald Speaks. Today, we're going to be going to do some digging in the crates, as it were. So, but before we go into that, I just kind of want to go over a couple of housekeeping items. So first, I do want to let you guys know that these are the opinions and these are the opinions of myself and the persons on this podcast. They do not reflect the SCA or its subsidiaries, and it does not delineate SCA policies. Also, just in case you guys were TLDR on that, it is our opinion, and if you don't like it, you don't need to listen. Also, for those of you who have sensitive ears, cursing will happen because I'm a fucking sailor and I fucking curse like a motherfucker. Anyway, so that's the first thing that I wanted to kind of go over. The next thing I kind of wanted to discuss was upcoming plans. The next thing that I will be attending is the second quarter SCA Board of Directors meeting. It will be held in the Salt Lake City, Utah area on the weekend of April 11th, I believe. Oh gosh, let me look at my friggin' calendar. Not this upcoming weekend, but the 12th and the 13th, I'll be flying out there. Unfortunately, there's no coinciding event out in Artemisia for me to attend, so it'll be strictly a modern type trip. I will be there to provide commentary on the Discord live while we're there, and I'll also probably do a short broadcast during the main break just to kind of go over what had happened so far, and then after that break, at the end of the show, I'll probably do a little longer broadcast about what went down. So that's in 2 weeks here on the Virtual Herald. So with that being said, the week before that, or next weekend, is Kaid's Crown Tournament. As you guys know, the Crown Tournament, Kaid's Crown Tournament is held on March, April, and then like September. And this time, I believe the tournament's going to be held in the Barony of Angels. I don't know. I won't be attending because I'll be getting ready for my trip to Salt Lake, and there's only so much money the Virtual Herald has. By the way, if you are interested in helping me with my with what I've got going on, I have my Buy Me a Coffee. The link is there at the bottom in your description. Also, I am currently trying to raise funds to be able to purchase a year-long subscription to StreamYard, and not have to pay for it with my credit card. So if you are able to provide some assistance with that endeavor, I would much appreciate it as well. So the links to that are on the there you go. There, see, Duckie's already kind of helping me out. She's they're in the background. So anyway, so let's kind of get into the flow of things. So my guests today, you know them and love them as Duckie. In the SCA, they are known as the Honorable Noble Elinor Assheycombe, and her and I, or them and I, excuse me. I'll be doing that every once in a while just because of nerves. They and I really met when I moved out here from the Kingdom of the Middle back in July, August. We became friends, and we became, and we were friendly with each other. At the time, they were Deputy Seneschal, and I was just coming in. Eventually, I took on the position of Exchequer for the barony, and they stepped up as the actual Seneschal. I believe that happened in August of 2022, and then, so, things happen and whatnot. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring Duckie on, and we're going to go ahead and have a talk about what happened and what happened then and what's going on now here. So once again, I've got I'll be bringing over the the lovable Duckie. Here we go. Hi.
Hello.
How's it going?
Hey.
Yeah,
Great.
so yeah, it's wonderful. So I wanted to kind of begin this conversation with just a brief synopsis of what happened. I will, if you, I will throw in the chat the link to the document that our editor, the wonderful Kit, put together, and
Our
that is shared.
documentation is
Yes,
flawless.
the documentation czar and the arc pedant. By the way, if she's here, hi Kit. And they are the ones that are that put together this wonderful document that I went ahead and just shamelessly shared, because why make things difficult for yourself when you can just share the
When you
thing.
have access to a technical writer, use the technical writer.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So let me, of course, now I got to find the flipping thing.
Oh, I
um
got you.
oh, you got me. Okay, see Duckie's so much better at this than I am. So if you can just post that on the comments there, that way people can. So when I moved out here in 2019, I moved out here from Ohio.
There you
The
go.
kingdom, yeah, the kingdom of the middle. And I had I wasn't as active as the virtual Herald as I had been when I was doing it in Atenvelt. In Atenvelt, I was pretty consistent in attending all the crown tournaments and doing all of the court postings. I kind of slowed it down a bit when I moved to the mid realm in 2016, simply because, it was a bigger kingdom. It was, it wasn't I didn't know what to expect. So in that time, I kind of did stuff, here or there. It wasn't as prolific as it was when I was in Atenvelt. And then when we decided, well, when the professor got that job over at CSN, and we made the cross country drive. I made that twice, by the way. I came out here in July to try to find a job. Then I flew back to Dayton. We packed up the house and then drove back across the country on a U-Haul with 4 pissed off cats. So it was great.
Those are just awful, by the way, those cross-country drives. Done those.
Yeah, been there, done that. Have to.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of trepidatious because Kaid is right next to Atenvelt. And for those of you who know me and my history, you guys know that I was forged on the fires of Atenvelt political drama. Um, there's a lot of PTSD trauma associated with my time there. I'm pretty sure that if I had not left Atenvelt when I did, I was pretty close to just quitting the SCA as a whole. It was starting to get that bad. And so the fact that I was moving to Las Vegas, which wasn't Atenvelt, but close enough, made me kind of plus I had heard about the whole free star coffin thing, and I was like, oh god.
I almost wore that shirt. But
I
we did have sort of a reputation. We weren't Atenvelter though. We're very on
Oh,
Thierry.
on
It's
Tyrion.
weird, right?
Y-
Yeah. Think
what do you
about
mean by
it. We have a bunch of Norse traditions. We all wear a bunch of Norse garb. Uh
which is really
and we
funny
do
considering
like
we're in the fucking
symbol
desert current.
things. Yeah, no, it's cuz of Conrad. But we're actually very on Thierry when you think about it.
Mhm. Well, yeah, and of course I didn't know this going in. All I knew is that I was basically going to have to start over in a new kingdom that I already kind of perceived as a little bit hostile, so I wasn't exactly sure that I was going to be able to participate in the way that I was used to, like in the mid realm or even in Atenvelt. And I was trepidatious, so I moved out here, and then I did meet Duckie and several members of the barony, including the people who were going to be stepping up as Baron and Baroness within that time frame. Thomas and Catelyn. I had actually known them before because they used to play and live in Atenvelt in the Kingman area. And at the time, they were getting ready to step into as the Baron and Baroness. This was like literally right before the Rona hit, and everything just went to shit. And so at the time, Catelyn was the exchequer for the barony. And
Yeah.
so they were, and she was looking for someone to replace her because no matter
Can't be
how
Baroness and
much you can,
Exchequer.
yeah, no matter how much you want it, you cannot have a member of the landed baronage also be a major officer. That is one of those things that's really clear in
Yeah.
Kokor, like black
Big
and
banner.
white.
Like
Real,
big
not
banner
really. Yeah,
should be running through the handbook. Don't do it.
right. Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, it's crystal clear, black and white. One of the few things that really truly is,
Yeah.
verboten. So, and I've been playing in the SCA for actually about around that time. It was 20 years or 15 years or something like that. I started back in 1999.
Well, and I
Um,
had heard from trusted Atenville people who
mhm,
were not assholes, like Heinrich and Juliana and people like that, that you were good people
mhm,
and had gotten a shit stick. And frankly, I had also gotten a shit stick from some of the people in Atenville that you had also gotten a shit stick from.
mhm. So we
And
we
he's
so we were
banned now, so thank God for that.
yes, yes, thank the baby Jesus. Finally, he finally caught a case, and he couldn't hide behind Duke Heron teeth. Oh, was that my out loud voice?
It was, but
Anyway,
he deserves it.
yeah, whatever. He can go pound sand. Anyway, well, so fast forward, we the Rona happens, everything comes to a stop. We and eventually around August of 2022, I step up as the actual exchequer because they're getting ready to step because of the transition that was
Yep.
about to happen. And I remind me, I know that by that time, were you already the seneschal, or were you
No,
still just technically the
they officially signed my warrant around that same time. I'd still just been riding on deputy. Uh
right? Because
and because it's the Rona and nobody's really checking anything.
yeah, and it was just a very muddled time all around, to be
Yeah,
quite frank.
I became deputy, or I became acting seneschal, like really in under strange circumstances,
Mhm.
in the not norm, so that the actual seneschal could process her complaint against the deputy exchequer, deputy youth, deputy everything he was, honestly, uh, who tried to murder her. So,
Yeah,
things were crazy down here already.
yeah, things. I mean, of course, all of this was going on. I was not aware of any of it. Like I said, I moved in there. I got here in July of 2019. I believe the event that you're referencing to happened like the following month in in
Yeah,
August.
right before Highland, so
Yeah.
September, end of
Uh,
August, early September.
Yeah, and I hadn't even made an attempt to contact anyone in the barony yet because I had literally just moved out there. I was trying to find a job. I was living,
Yeah,
the whole real world thing. OMG.
and so
Um,
I was just skating on acting seneschal for quite some time because I was turning in the reports, and it was COVID. We were keeping the lights on and the bills paid, so nobody gave a shit.
yeah, and so so in August of 2022, that was the beginning of our tenure.
Technically.
Duckie was technically Duckie became the actual seneschal of the barony, and I was technically sworn in as the exchequer for the barony. So here we are, the two most melanated maidens in Caid, holding the top two offices in a baronial territory.
Unheard of.
It was, and we ran with it, I believe, and that's where the kind of the phrase "the Joe and Ducky show" came from. Just because we figured we had each other, we had to lean on each other because of our
Yeah.
shared experience, and the fact that not only were we the most melanated officers in the kingdom at the time, I think anyway.
Some of.
We were also in
Yeah.
the group that was farthest away from the kingdom center. For those of you who are out of kingdom and aren't familiar with how Caid works, Caid is basically Southern California. The
And Hawaii.
border, yeah, and the board, Southern California, everything south of Fresno is Caid. Everything north of Fresno is Kingdom of the West. And you can extend that borderline right into kind of Nevada, where Clark County
Except
and
for
Las
Clark
Vegas,
County. Yeah,
Yeah,
except
Clark
for Clark
County.
County.
Yeah, Clark County and its environs, that is considered Caid, and then everything north of the, in the lake top, everything that's populated. I mean, is Tonopah technically mists or
No,
yeah?
Tonopah
So
is technically Sinagua.
Sinagua, yes, yes. So everything north of like the big giant desert space that technically there's nothing there, but we know that there's stuff there. Insert X-Men music here, or not X-Men, X-Files. Is Kingdom of the West, or the Principality of Sinagua. So yeah, and that does create a bit of a dichotomy for those of you who are unfamiliar with the with California. So California is known in the modern world for being this great big old blue state, and it's mostly true.
If your
However,
definition of blue is white savior,
well,
I'm
yeah.
just gonna say it. If your
Oh
definition
no,
of blue is white savior, then yes,
let's
it's a really
just
big blue state.
yes, it's a very big blue state. But the further inland you go, and the further north and middle California you go, the less blue it becomes, and it
And the
goes a
more
little bit
red.
a little more red. And so Caid happens to have this interesting mix. The downtown area, which is basically any Edwards Base and points below, that's the very liberal, left leaning, blue area.
Any of the four baronies of Los Angeles.
Mhm,
Sort of, because once you get to Gildenholt, they get conservative with their money again.
mhm.
Once you get to Gildenholt and Leondomere.
Yeah.
But
Well, I mean,
you have to have Manhattan Beach money to live in Manhattan Beach, I guess.
yeah.
Or
So
Orange County.
right. So but I actually put the border in at Edwards Air Force Base because Dunor is kind of a mix of the two. Dunor is the
True.
barony that it covers Edwards Air Force Base, which has a combination of military folks and the beginnings of what I like to call the essential downtowner, people who hey through and again the way I describe all this and I talk about it in very general terms, but the population of Caid, the further south you go, the more affluent and the more privileged they are. That's just facts,
The wealth gap goes like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much. And
And
Vegas
just
is
keeps going.
yeah, and Las Vegas is basically the easternmost corner of Caid. We are separated by at least 3 hours from the nearest group, which is
A shire.
The Shire of Al Said, which is in Hellendale area, Victorville
Area.
area, which is actually fairly conservative part of the state. Like when I drive out to events out that way, there be lots of Trump posters and
Yes,
like
well,
that.
and it's also for a number of reasons outside of being inland, it's also a lower cost area of living. So a number of people go to retire there. Looking at
Hmm.
you, Your Highness, I'm sorry, Your Majesty.
Hmm. Anyway, so Las Vegas is in a pretty unique position. In the modern world, Las Vegas is obviously a very well known location. We are the one. I wouldn't say we're the entertainment capital of the world, but we definitely are known for our tourism industry. We basically Las Vegas and Clark County basically carries the state on its back in terms of revenue generation and whatnot. Uh, we are the Las Vegas is the reason why us folks in the state of Nevada don't pay any state income tax. Um,
Yeah, all that
so
gaming revenue is real good.
yeah, hey, we
But that
love tourists. We
that
love
does
you.
make it that
Keep
does make
coming.
it so that we're driving 4 hours to these meetings. We're spending $300 in gas.
Hmm. And of
Uh,
course, and
yeah.
this was back in 2023 when gas was, relatively expensive, and things are not improved. I mean, they say that they improve, but then they don't. And then, but so all of this to say, Las Vegas, the king and the barony of Starcoffin is in a unique position. We are part of the kingdom, but we're not. We we are included in
They're included the same way Western Seas is included, but they at least get the joy of being a Palatine barony and getting to pick their rulers how they want to and do things like that. We get stuck with the shit stick.
Yeah, well, yeah. And
not that I don't like Eli and Elinor, but they submitted their stuff after the letters of intent were done. So like we get stuck. We don't get to pick what's good for us like Western Seas does. Is my point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and apparently the word from on high is that this will never change because we are not an island. We're not surrounded by water.
Yeah.
Take that as you will. Anyway, so that's kind of where we're at. It's August. It's effing hot. I remember that baronial tournament where I was literally, it was 109 flipping degrees out. And we were invested. And there we go. So fast forward to September. Now, at this time, Crown Tournament was held in September, and typically it was the second weekend of September, the weekend after Labor Day. Now, I myself was not at this Crown Tournament in September 2022.
I was a consort.
They were a consort at the time. I was actually out of state. I was traveling back to Ohio, the barony of Flaming Griffin in the Kingdom of the Middle, which is where I was playing throughout my tenure out there. And I was at an event called Harvest Days, which is a really cool event. I got to, meet up with my peer who I'm still associated with, and just kind of enjoy weather, for the lack of a better term, because it was not 100 and death outside, and there was green, like actual green, none of this bullshit that they call green up in here. Anyway,
I'm from real green. I don't know what you're talking about.
When I moved to Ohio, I spent the first 6 months literally staring at trees and grass because I could not fathom the green color there. Anyway, at that tournament, stuff and things happened. So, and let's not gild a lily. Crown tournaments are notoriously
gnarly. And this one was particularly bad, honestly. And so, you and I have both been field heralds for a number of years on a kingdom level.
Yeah, I was Corona Herald for the Kingdom of Atenveld for 4 years, and Duckie, you were the Bellows.
And I was Bellows.
Yes.
Yeah, which is the same equivalent. Equivalent job. So it's not like we hadn't seen like shit ass crown fights before.
I'm not a fighter, never have been. I put on a helm for like maybe 5 minutes in college, and I was like, no thanks.
I fought for like 4 years until concussions took me out. It was fun, but so I got the basics of it down for the most part.
So go ahead and so actually, if you could just give us a synopsis of, because you were there, I was not.
In this particular final, Optimus and Scala were really, really, really fucking thick. They were clubbing on each other, and adrenaline was taking everything apparently. And there was a couple of times where it just looked like, with Optimus just like jumping out of the way, sort of weird dodges, and every headshot was off the crest type of headshots, you know what I mean? And they were thugging it out for what seemed like quite a while. And by the end of the fight, when Optimus did win, nobody felt like it was particularly clean. And when I saw them pop their hats, I looked at Scala, and I've known Matt Jepson for a while. Matt, don't act like I don't know you. You had murder eyes. And I went and talked to his consort about that, because that should never be the case. It should never be the OODA loop, that fight or flight response should never turn on so bad that you actually want to harm the other person so badly that they don't get to play anymore. And that's what it looked like.
Right. So
neither one of them were good. Like, Matt was gonna, Scala was straight up gonna kill Optimus, and Optimus was just like, I'm not taking anything, because that's what he'd been trained to do, and that's what this guy had been traumatized into doing.
So that happened. And then we fast forward, we go through the stuff into things, and then we get to coronation, which in Caid, coronation is held in conjunction with our Kingdom 12th Night Christmas party type deal. And this time around, it was being held in the town of Riverside, California, which is the Barony of the
Barony
North.
of Drybergen.
Oh, Drybergen, excuse me. So Drybergen is Riverside, which
Drybergen is one of the largest geographical landmass baronies because they're like most of inland California. Like they're most of San Bernardino County, which is the largest county in, I think actually all of San Bernardino County, which is the largest county landmass wise in California.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, because it starts when we leave when we leave the state of Nevada.
Hmm.
San Bernardino County starts at Prim.
Oh, so okay. I did not realize this. See, I'm not, I've been here almost 6 years and I'm still figuring out the where's, the who's, and the what baronies or what locations in the modern world. Um I was not aware that San Bernardino County was that big.
Yeah, it's the largest landmass barony in California, but I know that for legal reasons.
Well, of course you do. So and I believe that was going to be our first privy council as the exchequer and the seneschal of the barony.
Yeah.
Am I correct in that? Yeah. Okay. So it was going to be our first privy council, and at that time, privy councils were held the day after coronation. Excuse
like
me.
our first one fully invested. I think we'd
Yes,
gone to one as deputies, but like
I
this was
think
our
we,
first
yeah, I
one.
think I attended one more before that, but
Yeah,
this was
this,
our first time that we were attending as the
we get to run the show.
seneschal
Yeah,
and the exchequer, and we were
yeah.
just like, "Woo, let's go! It'll be fun." So I get up at butt ass early in the morning on Saturday, January 7th, 2023. Get up. At the time, we had the space car.
My ex-husband's very nice hybrid.
Yes, it was very nice. And they picked me up from my home in Central Vegas. And then we got on the road. It was still dark. And we started making our way over to Riverside.
Right, because we can't always just hotel it all the fucking time, and
Well, we did end up hoteling it, but we didn't want to do
you
so
can't do 2 nights. It's
typically,
too expensive.
typically if we're going to be going out to an event in downtown, we either stay 2 nights, Friday night, Saturday night, or we come in Saturday morning and then hotel it Saturday night and then leave Sunday.
Because the
Or
turn and burn's so fucking hard. Like I can't turn the turn and burn is what a lot of the older star coffiners will call it. When you go down and you drive 6 hours in the morning and then you drive 6 hours back at night because
I can't do that.
The turn and burn is hard.
There was a time in my storied youth where I could probably do something like that, but age and wisdom and the fact that I will fall asleep at the wheel and end up killing myself prevents me from doing that sort of thing. So as I'm fond of telling people, there is no such thing as a day trip event for Star Coffin, unless we are having an event in our barony, which is happening next month with the anniversary and investiture. But anyways, so we're driving out and we make it to our first pit stop, which is Baker. Now, Baker is basically the first kind of anything that resembles some sort of commercial location once you get outside or once you get past the Nevada California border. It's I know that there's people that live there because obviously somebody has to work the truck stop, but literally it's just a couple of exits with restaurants, gas stations, Tesla chargers now.
Yeah. More people than you think drive in from Apple Valley or Victorville. I learned this when my car broke down there.
So and the tradition or the folk tradition
the folklore out here is that you have to stop and appease the baker gods because there's some evil wizard or god of commerce out there that if you don't stop and like check out your vehicle and buy a thing and just stop and baker, something's happening to your vehicle. We've had people find cockroaches in their candy. We've had people have all of the poles pop off their tent or pop off the top of their vehicle and then just go into the windshield. We've had cars flip over. It's old Starkoffen superstition that's actually kind of super practical because it's about 2 hours into your drive, and if something's going to go wrong, like one of your bungees is going to snap, or you're getting a flat tire, you're going to notice about 2 hours in.
Yep. So we did our traditional stop at Baker, and we I believe we stopped at the general store, which wasn't the gas station because we were in a hybrid, so we didn't need
Yeah,
to
we just
stop.
wanted.
We didn't need gas. But we appeased the Baker gods. We stopped at the general store. We walked around. We stretched our legs. Went to the can. Bought like junk food or something like that. I don't even remember. And then we got back into the car. And then at that point is when I took the selfie that I shared in my previous State of the Herald post. And I was already in my garb because I was wearing just a simple black uh coat dress
Yeah,
and my coronet and stuff like that. It wasn't anything. I wasn't doing my late period stuff because it was I had just things were starting to just get back into things, and I just didn't have the wherewithal. Plus, I'm not going to be trying to put on friggin' Elizabethan at 4 o'clock in the morning. That's just dumb. And then Duckie, they were in you were in your civvies.
yeah.
So we take our picture and I posted on Facebook letting people know, hey, we're en route. And yeah, so from there we make our way to the event, and then I basically if you look at the document that was shared with the link, I kind of began from there, and I kind of went over the events of that day, um, where and now I will understand from my perspective. I didn't know what the heck was going on because again, I was just really getting back into the swing of things after the Rona, and and even before the Rona, I had just really started stepping my toe into the kingdom because I moved out here in July. It took me about 6 to 8 months to get a job, to get situated, acclimated. I attended
Yeah.
my first Kingdom of Kaid event was actually the year before when I became or the coronation of the not the year before the coronation of January 2020 when Alexander and Tahira ascended the throne.
The forever
Um,
king and queen for a while there.
yes, and who knew back then? We had no idea that this was going down.
Yeah.
I attended that event. That was my first true, me coming into the kingdom and stuff like that. And then
Whereas I had
after,
been here for 15 years and really just deeply enmeshed. As much as people don't want me around, as deeply enmeshed as
so I will say this. Let me kind of back that up a little bit. You said the what you said earlier. You said in spite of people not wanting you around, you were around. So can you, as much as you feel comfortable sharing, can you kind of explain that dynamic and what you because prior to this incident, you were already had a reputation, as it were. So can you talk a little bit about that?
I have a reputation for not handling bullshit. Much like yourself, I have a reputation for not handling bullshit. And I had already been fighting against a lot of transphobia, racism, misogyny, a whole number of other things. Because you know what? Two spirit, valid trans perspective. I don't care if you don't accept it because you don't know anything about it, but it is because we're not inside the fucking gender binary. uh we have a whole gender system you know nothing about, and but also like the racism that goes along with that, and like just the inability to get people to think outside of themselves. I had ended up running away and camping elsewhere in with a household in Calafia, um to avoid my own barony because like I had shit ass relationships with everybody in power, sort of down here, or anybody with any sort of social sway. Like, uh, and so with all of those messages, like everybody saying, you're too loud, you're too this, you complain too much, you ask too much of people. All of those things tell you that you don't want me around. Like, all of those things say, we don't care about your opinion.
Yeah, and I have to echo that. I mean, that was pretty much my reputation in Atenveld, and it was getting to the point where no matter what I said or did, uh, it was my honor was being questioned. My
Mhm.
intentions were being questioned. I
I got
was
called the
seen.
new Cormac Moore, and that's what we're doing to a white guy. That's
Now
what we're
can you
doing to a cis white guy with privilege. We're
so
labeling him as
explain.
like the new social justice warrior, and then
Mhm.
they labeled me that. They didn't look at me and like think, oh, maybe this person has a point. They labeled me as somebody they already didn't like and didn't want to listen to, and I got labeled the new Cormac Moore.
Yeah, and of course this was I this is all of this I know now, but back then not a clue. I mean, I kind of had an idea because when we were our friendship was we were friends, we're solid friends at that time. We're nowhere near as close as we are now.
Correct.
But I kind of felt a kindred spirit with Duckie. Them and I felt like on a subcutaneous level, I suppose. I felt like I understand this person and this person understands me, and our shared experience is not the same, but similar.
Yeah,
Similar.
it's similar.
Yeah. When I left Atenvelt and moved to the Middle Kingdom, I was relieved. I'll be quite frank. I was so sick and tired of being made to feel like a pariah in Atenveld, having my honor and my integrity and my motives questioned every time I did or said anything. And I just when I got to the mid realm, it was like a breath of fresh air. Like people were nice to me. I was able to do things and organize and be part of the officer corps and do the virtual herald without be and people took it as what it was in face value.
And
This
that's
was
kind
my
of how
way
it
of
was for me in Calafia when I was hanging out with the engineers in Calafia, but I still had to drive 6 hours to do that. I couldn't just pick up and
well,
move.
yeah, and I didn't. And the other thing about the mid realm is that mid realm is also one of the larger kingdoms. I think I'm not sure if they are the largest now, but they do it unlike Caliphate or Caid, which comprises half of a state, or Atenveld, which just comprises the state of
One
Arizona.
state. Yeah.
The mid realm actually comprises of 5 states: all of Illinois, uh,
Ohio,
Ohio,
Indiana.
Indiana, or not all of Illinois, well, maybe all of Illinois, but all of Indiana, all of Ohio, northern Kentucky, I like to call the populated portion, and Michigan, including the the upper peninsula. So that's a large that's a large territory with a lot of different people. In fact, the kingdom itself is divided um, into its own territories or districts, as it were. I was part of the area I lived in was part of the North Oaken region, and there was South Oaken, Constellation. Oh gosh, and then there was two more that I don't even freaking remember anymore. Maybe somebody from the mid realm that's listening can kind of fill in the gaps. But you know, there was such a much more chill attitude there. People were nice. People people were like, they saw my ideas and saw what I tried to do, and they they didn't question. I mean, their questions were, okay, well, what can we do to support you? Or okay, what can that's a great idea. Here's something for you, a way for you to get this done. um
Yeah,
it was
whereas I
just
had to go to the fringe players of Caid because not only could I not leave, but I didn't Whereas I had been more mainstream, I had been a protege, I had been all these other things for a long time. One of the things for me that ultimately led me to doing this was me giving back the belt and me telling the peerage order, like the Pelican peerage order, why I gave back the belt, because my peer was asking for just completely unreasonable things, and his wife was propositioning me for BDSM play while he was gone, and a whole bunch of just fucked up shit that I didn't feel that I should be in fealty to that guy, nor that it was something should be done about him, because that's not a good situation.
Right.
But I
And
took a bunch of backlash for speaking my truth and protecting myself, because I didn't just work it out with him. Oh God, no, I just handed the belt back, which was his narrative. It wasn't, he was in Guam and San Francisco and never answering the fucking phone for me to talk it out with him. And then when he came back after his wife made Pelican, he said, cool, now you're in fealty to her, with no conversations, no nothing. And I'm like, man, she tried to proposition me for BDSM play and sex while you were gone. And he's like, cool, we're not going to talk about it.
wow. All right. So that's where we
And
were.
I can't look at myself and go, yeah, I want to be a Pelican and be in a group of people who allow that, who have only allowed even worse shit later on, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
Look at you, Giles and Giuseppe. Like,
So thanks to Dakota here, just real quick. These are the regions in Midrealm: North Oaken, South Oaken, Midlands, Constellation, and Pentamere. I was close. I was off by two. Anyway, thank you, Dakota. Appreciate you clarifying that for me.
and
So
he also would just demand that I bite my tongue a lot and wouldn't defend me against racist ass comments that his friends made, like I'm not civilized, and they called me the S slur in their fucking home, and he did fuck all about it. Shit like that.
As you can see, things there was already a bit of tension in the background of this. And so if you read the narrative that I posted, which again was based on what my knowledge was at the time, I will say this, the Crown Tournament of Kaid that September kind of went, I don't want to necessarily say viral, because it wasn't that big. It wasn't like on the word. There's other things that have happened in the SCA that were more viral than that Crown Tournament, but it was definitely something that was definitely discussed well outside the borders of Kaid. I mean, for example, I was in an event in the Mid-Realm that weekend, and then the following day I was having, breakfast with some folks, and they were asking me about it. And I'm like, what do you mean? What's going on? I've been here. So I don't know what's going on. And so I was shown the video of the fight. I believe that within hours of that final fight, that fight was being dissected. It was being played in like half speed, and it was basically being, or quarter speed, and it was being analyzed by pretty much the majority of the fighter community in the SCA.
Some of the best fight analysis nights that I've ever seen were analyzing that. Like I know, like the Ask the Knights guys who do a lot, like Coach's Corner guys were doing it. Helgi was doing it, and he does quarter speed breakdowns like I've never fucking seen.
Mm-hmm. So it was a particularly egregious example of Crown tournaments and how they can become problematic. And let's not even talk about the discussion about, alternative ways of crown, of having crown, of choosing our royalty and things of that nature, because that's a whole other pack of banana monkeys. So that happened. Long story short, because you're gonna have to read it, I'm not gonna repeat it. Kaid is a very ceremonial kingdom. they have, and not just ceremony as in like, we have a thing, we have like a outline of what a pelican ceremony is or what it is written down, and the words are pretty rote, and it's spelled out in this book called the Qaid Book of Ceremonies. And it
We're very
is
big on tradition
it's
here.
a yeah it's like and that's very different from Atenvelt. It's very different from the mid realm. It's and Qaid had a very structured ceremony for the coronation of a king and queen. Now, one of the aspects of the ceremony that was part of it was the Gauntlet challenge, which I explained in my Herald State of the Herald post. I quoted the page that was in that explained what the Gauntlet challenge was, and in essence, it's the speak now or forever hold your peace portion of the wedding ceremony. Because let's face
Let's
it,
face it. It's a
it's
wedding ceremony.
it is. It's very much the tone and the
These people spend. I'm going to go on a small rant here for a second. These people, the crown of Qaid is pressured to spend $10,000 to $15,000 on average because they need to have special step up garb, special step down garb, special garb for every like big major event, and their step up garb better be fucking fancy because it's their wedding garb, and so the bar is always kind of set very high for Qaid. We reimburse about $3,800 of travel, but like travel is not the biggest part of the budget when you reign here. It's keeping up with the Joneses.
right. And and the SCA already is not a cheap hobby, even with
Nope.
this, even without this extra pressure or anything that is specific to Qaid. It is an expensive hobby. It is not. It is, and the longer you play, the expectation is that the better your that your kit is, and the more expensive it gets. um I have been very fortunate and privileged to be able to play the game within my means. I was also very fortunate and privileged in the beginning of my SCA career, when I was a student at Northern Arizona University, that I had people not only in the barony that I was living in, but within the kingdom itself, who subsidized my SCA, because they paid for my site fees. They let
And
me.
I think that was a different culture of the SCA because that largely doesn't happen anymore unless something like Rosie's uh, belt favor fund to cover NMS things happens, or the Duke who's
Well, I
doing it
will
out of
say
the
the
West.
NMS did not exist really when I first started playing.
Right. But like this is what I'm saying. Like we had more people doing the crash base coordinating, the subsidizing things. People cared about that stuff a lot more when they were the ones using it. I'm looking at all you old timers. You cared a lot more about subsidizing other people's playing of the game when you actually needed it than you do now.
Yeah, and the
And
need
that's
has
why
not
the
gone
game
away.
is dying. Like that's a factor in why the game is dying because like if you want people to come in, you got to lower the bar. And you raise the bar up here because boomers like to shut the door behind them. You raise the bar to up here, so everybody's got to play to this level, and you don't help them back. You don't help them up.
So, and I will say this, it's unfortunate because that's not necessarily the culture that I have seen in other places, like in the mid realm. I was able to do a lot of crash space. I was able to find places to stay. I was able to travel a lot more freely within the within those 5 states, than I feel.
Our editor's here.
Oh, hey, the editor is here. Hi. So all of this is in the background here, as the day went by, and the decision that Duckie made to pick up that gauntlet. Um, at the time, it was considered just a rote part of the ceremony, just like in a wedding. You don't really expect anyone to say anything when they say that part of the ceremony. It's just kind of like, you
And when
know.
it had been picked up before, it was in theater, right? It was in jest and in theater of like,
Mhm.
oh, the king is dead, playfulness. Like nobody had done it for real.
Yeah. And what precipitated the decision for you to pick up the gauntlet was the fact that said that the it wasn't actually originally your idea.
No,
I
no,
don't think people realize this, that originally someone else was considering
I
picking
took
it up.
over this job, for lack of a better term, because a white man with privilege had been threatened with physical violence. So basically, Sir Alejandro de Nuevo Castillo, an old friend of mine from Nordvaca, had
Which,
wanted
by
to
the
pick it
way,
up.
For those of you at home, Nordvaca is the barony up in Fresno. So they are
It's
the
the one up against the
northernmost
west.
barony in the kingdom. Definitely not downtown. Continue.
No, definitely not downtown. And he and I had been close friends because of the not downtown status. He had saved my ass, mine, mine and my friend Lithus's ass a couple of times when when we were royal staff, and the royals that we were working for were less than caring about whether or not we had everything we needed to serve them, like a tent or garb or food. Uh, and Allie saved my ass back then. So when I saw him at Crown, or when I saw him at Coronation, and he said, "I want to pick up the gauntlet," but he's getting talked out of it by Catherine of Hornchurch, who's only stalling him because she wants Larissa to come talk to him. Fuck you, Larissa. I I don't think that's okay. Like, I'm sitting there and I'm watching a man who should I'm watching a knight who knew it was his job to pick it up get talked out of doing it by white women. And I highlight that because white women always uphold the patriarchy until they condition themselves not to. And that's what these women were doing.
Okay. So, and this was all going on while I was sitting there, making jokes about, being inside of a church. But anyway, so the thing happens, and then the thing that happens after that, where we where we're where so obviously the gauntlet gets picked up, the stuff and things happen. The coronation proceeds anyway because it was never not going to proceed. At this point, it was this
Because of
the
the way we've
gauntlet
written corpora, the minute you're a highness, you're protected by corpora as a royal. And this is the thing that has come out of the gauntlet. This is the thing that has come out of this whole protest is the looking into the corporate law and the corporate bylaws to see if there was even anything to do about it when I picked it up. And the answer is no, because by the time that you were there at coronation, they've been considered royals for 3 months, and the time to do it is after crown,
right, which
which I'd
and
been ignored anyway. Like, a number of people went up to the kingdom officers and said, "Hey, what are we doing about this?" And we got told it's being handled. You know what? Transparency works. Try saying shit, Davin.
anyway, so that happened, and then the events afterwards where we were called up to now King Optimus, and we had the little conversation, and at that point we also had the slight misunderstanding where Duckie misheard His Majesty telling you thought that they were telling you to bow, and I guess it turned out that
He said,
that
"You
was
don't have to," but I misheard him because I've broken the incus and the stapes in this year.
yeah. So, which of course, as soon as I found that out, I posted it immediately,
Yeah,
and
we corrected ourselves.
yeah, we corrected ourselves, and then afterwards, so that happened. The event ended. We got the hell out of Dodge, and we stayed the night at Ye Old Motel 6 because because we were expected at Privy Council the next day in our capacity as Exchequer and Seneschal. I will tell you that evening was pretty fraught. We were pretty sure that we were either going to get banished or terped or something that was gonna go down because
Yep.
They Duckie for actually doing the thing, and me because I documented it and wrote it out. Oh boy.
The last time I stood up to people in power, so, like one of the last times that I had stood up to people in power, even in the course of doing my duties, I had been threatened to be banished from the royal presence. And that was just me telling Landon to shut up. So like I didn't have any faith that me doing protests in front of all these fucking white people was gonna not net me at least a banishment.
Right. And I of course um had just come back from being, in the mid realm, which I was very much culturally in tune with how I played the SCA, but also being hyper aware because because of the, even though Kaid and Atenvelt are two different kingdoms with two different traditions, and
We
they're
still look
not,
like this.
there's enough similarities, and I've talked about the Atenvelt method of ruling in subsequent podcasts and articles based off of situations that have happened long after this is gone on. And I was of the impression as well. You know what? I'm in for a penny, in for a pound. I'm going to, stand by what I wrote, and let the chips fall where they may. Insert all sorts of other cliched sayings here, um, because at that moment, me making those posts and being witness to all of this, especially, I felt that I felt that it was important to share this. And at the time, I posted this account and the one from the next day at Privy Council. I posted it on my personal Facebook page, not the Virtual Herald, because I wasn't even thinking about the Virtual Herald at the time. I was thinking of myself as Jerusha, as Joe, as a woman of color, um, who participates in an activity that is very, very skewed towards to the Caucasian.
Oh boy, yeah, no, like very skewed to the Caucasian, to the point that like even in that Privy Council, we were some of the brownest people there,
Yeah,
and those are the kingdom volunteer. Those are all the kingdom volunteers for every major geopolitical group minus Western Seas.
right. Because kind of hard to come in person to a Privy Council via boat.
Yeah, I don't like that they get out of it, but we don't. And
Yeah,
I'm not saying that to be like, oh fuck you, Western Seas. No, they shouldn't have to. They can zoom in, right? But on the same token, we should be able to do that too, because I don't. You aren't giving me a stipend to drive down there.
right. I'm of the opinion that and a lot of kingdoms nowadays, I know in the East Kingdom and Antir and other kingdoms where there are a much larger geographic population, most of the kingdom business is now conducted via Zoom. That is one of the things that the Rona brought, and that it was, and I'm saying in other kingdoms,
Yeah, no,
not so
we
much.
we have the problem of having society treasurer in our kingdom. That's the problem there, because she keeps telling everybody we don't have a pot to piss in, so we don't think about buying a kingdom Zoom account to be able to do this.
I thought the kingdom had a Zoom account.
I think it might.
So
I'm just more dragging on her.
yeah, I understand.
I get frustrated with her because I get frustrated with all of the board, and this goes into one of the talking points. I get frustrated with them because they act holier than thou when they could, I don't know, fund small projects that would make the game better or shit on new things, and they act like they have no media literacy when they're all peers, most of them, maybe one of them isn't. They know their voice carries. They just don't give a shit, because being a board level officer is a special kind of hell nobody else could ever possibly understand. Not only have I been through hell, I was assistant manager there.
right. So then the next day Privy Council happens, and we get up early in the morning, get dressed and get ready to go, and then we arrive at the parking lot, And we kind of sat there for at least 15 minutes. And we were both kind of like,
Oh, there's the answer. We have Google Meets since our kingdom primarily uses Google Suites.
oh,
There's
well,
the
there you go.
answer.
That's, by the way, the gentleman here speaking is the current Crescent Principal Herald for Kaid. Hi, Pennifer.
Thanks, Pennifer.
So, right. Back to what we were talking about. So we were sitting there in the car. We were watching the parking lot. They were getting food out. They were having some sort of breakfast thing out in the parking lot, and people were out there milling around and
Their
talking.
normal
And we were,
brunch,
yeah,
brunch before
some
privy
sort of
thing.
thing. And we were just kind of sitting there going, okay.
It's a 2-hour long business meeting. If you don't feed people, they get cranky.
Mm-hmm. But still, I mean, the last thing I was thinking about was food. We were sitting there, and we were kind of like, okay, so how are we going to do this? Are we going to just get out and do our thing, or are we going to do what? And then, because we had no idea the type of reception we were going to get.
I didn't
And
think it
we
could be
didn't
good.
know if as soon as we walked up, people were going, they were going to push us away and tell us, gee, get the fuck out of here, or
Rescind our warrants? I don't
rescind our
know.
warrants, go in there and give us the perennial cold shoulder, which quite frankly I'm already used to at this point. But
which is kind of what I've been getting for the last 2.5 years. It's real fun to
right.
get talked about instead of talked to.
Right. So we show up, and lo and behold,
We're not banned.
we're not banned. We're not made an example of. Nothing of the sort happened. And I direct people to my post kind of going over what all happened. And I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but suffice it to say that the response of Optimus, as well as the other people in the kingdom, not necessarily the powers that be, but the other people was definitely not what we expected. I did not expect for what I wrote to be disseminated out as it was. I did not expect that what happened and what transpired and what I recorded, because again, I did not do this. I am want to make it perfectly clear that I am not. At the time I wrote, it was like Duckie does what does and says what people were too chicken shit to say, myself included. My reasons for being chicken shit were pretty much the fact that I was still new to the kingdom and I didn't know which end was up, but that was still being chicken shit because I knew what was going on. I mean, I've been playing this game for 20 plus years. Dirty Crown tournament, some dude that really shouldn't have, they should have fucking refought that thing, but it's never going to happen because that's not how it's done. But yeah, it kind of turned out
For once. It kind of turned out sort of okay-ish for a while.
Yeah,
for a while.
At least, and for me, aftermath. Oh, culture. Keep quiet. Handle things behind the scenes. Here. And that's a huge problem. Not the only problem, but a huge one. Yes, Kit is correct on that. Now, I'm going to say this. This is kind of where the story diverges a little bit. Yes, this brought Duckie and I much closer, and the friendship that we have now is much closer and very different from the friendship we had then. I consider Duckie to be one of my closest friends. They have been through a lot in the subsequent 2.5 years since this has happened, and a lot of that was not pleasant. And I'm going to let them speak as to what that was in just a moment. For my own experience, I took this as a opportunity to kind of re-examine what my purpose was going to be in the SCA. by the time I moved to Kaid, I had been here. I had been participating in the SCA for a little over 15 years, approaching 20. Um, I had the majority of that time I had spent in the crucible that is Atenveld, and I had 5 wonderful years in the Kingdom of the Middle where I felt truly a part of the kingdom, and it still has this this very special place in my heart. If I could, I'm not gonna lie, if I could just pack everyone up in the mid realm and just take them with me back to Las Vegas, I totally would. It is my heart home. But as I have been fond of saying, real life comes first. And when my husband was offered a tenure track position at the College of Southern Nevada, you just don't turn that down because I don't want to, because of the SCA game in a particular state.
Yeah, tenure
Since
track's
then,
hard to find.
yeah, since then, I basically kind of pivoted the direction that the Virtual Herald was going to be. Before this incident, the Virtual Herald was strictly a court reporting service. I went to events, I reported what happened at court. I went to Crown Tournament, I reported what happened at Crown Tournament. A lot of the innovations and the things that I did for Atenveld have since been copied and made a lot better by folks in other kingdoms. The fighter cards, that was I was the first person to do that. The play-by-plays that are now familiar, the going live and stuff like that, all of that kind of came out of what I was originally doing as the Virtual Herald back in 2010, 2011, 2012. And I didn't feel like I really had that was really something I needed to continue doing, because for one thing, I was in a place where it was going to be very difficult for me to participate and be part of the Crown Tournament culture like I was in the Mid Realm and Atenveld. And then for another, it's like at that point, people were already doing it a lot better than I am. I definitely will say that the way that that events have been reported and things of that nature are done has grown by leaps and bounds. And a lot of it was helped by COVID, quite frankly. I mean, COVID did kind of finally made it cool to actually use technology within the SCA. When I first became the Virtual Herald and when I first started posting pictures and creating content for the kingdom, it was not well looked upon. I was given a lot of flack. At one point, I was even kicked out of the Kingdom of Atenveld's SCA Facebook page because what I was doing was not on brand, whatever the hell that meant.
We still don't even know what that brand is. Ugh.
Anyway, and so even though the Virtual Herald technically began on May 1st, 2010, I didn't actually begin the page until October of 2012, because that's when I was kicked out of my home in the Kingdom of Atenveld page, and I decided to create my own page and start my own brand. So this brand has evolved, and I have to say this situation kind of was the beginning of that. What really propelled it, though, for me, was the board's decision to unilaterally fire Baroness Sarah, Jessica Van Hatten, from the DEIB corporate office, and
Yep.
the insulting and the ensuring hullabaloo that caused. That's what basically made me turn the Virtual Herald from a social media blogging, kind of court reporter type service to more of an investigative, more of a
Using that journalism degree.
yeah, that's also true. I graduated with a journalism degree, and I was and now I get to use it. So that was my experience, and what happened to me in the aftermath of the Gauntlet situation and moving forward. My experience, though, is very, very different from Duckie's, and now I'm going to allow them to kind of take the floor a little bit and kind of discuss as much as they wish to. I mean, what their aftermath was and what they have gone through since this happened.
In like the immediate aftermath, like during Optimus and Issa's reign, things were mostly okay. I had the protection of being an advisor. I had the protection of working on some projects with people. So for the reign, it was mostly okay. And I say mostly because there was some rumblings and there were some things that people said that they thought were kind of helpful, but really aren't if you think about it. like very early on, I got compared to Colin Kaepernick. I got called Kaid's Colin Kaepernick. And while I love Faiza, while I love her to pieces, and I understand her intentions behind it because he was a very well-known protester and it was a very peaceful protest, he never worked in his field again. He never got to play in the NFL ever again. So if you think about it, being called Colin Kaepernick is great to a point. It essentially locks in the view that this is as far as I can. Not that I have aspirations because of all the other things that I've talked about before. Like how do I walk into the Pelican Council with a bunch of rape apologists and people who will apologize for people who treat me like shit, who refuse to learn basic DEIB concepts about like racism and things like that. So how do I sit in that group of people and call myself a pelican and not just drive myself insane? I can't work in Gaswenta with those people. I can't. But it just cemented for me the fact that this is as far as I'm going. That's it. I never work in my field again. I never succeed. I never advance. In fact, I end up backtracking, which is what I found myself doing. I went from stewarding wars and being like working on big kingdom projects and being a kingdom officer to fighting to be a co-steward for a barony war when I actually put in to be a steward for that war. And I don't get picked for kingdom office because I'm the angry brown one, not the palatable white one. The public perception of me got cemented as the Gauntlet Herald. Now there is this ineffable concept of the Gauntlet Herald, and it's not Duckie. Those are two different people. There's this ineffable concept of social justice, and that's all anybody sees, and that's all anybody has talked about, but they forget that there's a human being behind it. And so I've been talked about for the last 2.5 years. Not talked to, talked about. Do you know how dehumanizing that is?
Yeah. I, as someone who has also been talked about instead of talked to, yes, it is very dehumanizing, and very depressing, and very much wants you to. Made at certain points during my time in Ainveld, it made me question whether or not it was worth it for me to even be here, like be here in this planet.
Yeah, and I've done the same thing, honestly. Like without getting too deep into it, it's affected every relationship, and it wasn't supposed to affect any group or relationship that I had any affiliation with, because I very specifically took off my cogs, took off my Herald's medallion, I took off everything that said I'm one specific group, but it still affected every relationship I've ever had. I set myself adrift with the engineers. I don't play in the barony. I'm divorced. Like, it's affected everything.
Right. So that's kind of been the aftermath of that. Here we are 2.5 years later, and as you can see, like I said in my article, speaking truth to power definitely makes you be able to sleep at night, but the cost to the human, to Duckie, to myself, is real. Now, I'm not going to say that my life has been peachy keen, hunky-dory, and all roses. I, too, have been pretty much put on the shelf in this kingdom. I have no expectation of ever being elevated to any peerage, be it the laurel or the pelican. My activism on the virtual Herald is just part of that, though. There's other things. Like, I've had this reputation for a while, for years. I've been Duckie, you started playing in what, 19
I
or
started
2000?
playing in 2000. So I started playing in Ethnomark technically right around the time I ended high school. So like
which was
2007, 2006,
right,
but I didn't really get super serious until 2008, 2009 when I moved out here.
right. And so Duckie has been playing, since 2007. I started in 1999. And I started pretty much, going at it full tilt. I had my AOA within 6 months of joining. I was involved. I became highly involved in my local group. I was the deputy seneschal for and one of the founding members of the College of Saint Vladimir. I was seneschal for the barony of Herald. I've held, I've been there, done that, have the T-shirt,
The thing is, I
and
should have been the next generation of that. I should have been. Like, it should have been you than me. Like, you passing things off. That's how it should have been. You should have been more successful than passing out things off to somebody like me because I came in like 10, 20 years after you did.
right,
Generations of the game, you should have succeeded and then been able to pass shit down to somebody like me.
right. Well, and sadly, that has not happened. And I've made my peace with it. It still hurts like a son of a bitch. I mean, when I hear about people being elevated to the peerage, people that I have actually introduced to the SCA and have supported, and they're being elevated to the peerage, and here I am.
You ever watch
Yeah,
all of your peers get elevated except you?
yeah,
That's what
pretty
we've been
much.
doing.
That's pretty much how it is. And while I have had a lot of and while the social cost to me has been not insignificant, um, I am very fortunate that in my real world relationships and connections, I have been very blessed, with folks like Duckie, folks like the editor, Kit, the professor, my husband, who is literally the rock in which I he's been. I almost feel like Queen Elizabeth II when I say that he has been my stay and stand all these years. We celebrated we've been together since 2008, actually, and we just celebrated our 13th wedding anniversary, and we've been together for almost 20. And I would not be the person I would not be this healthy as I was today if it wasn't for him and the people in the SCA who, and I'm going to basically be kind of blunt here. Unlike Duckie, whose SCA relationships were tainted by this situation, and the people that they were associated with have chosen to, for lack of a better word, not support them. Um,
I mean, two of my
my
ex-spouses are in Larissa's household. That's going to make it really hard for them if she hates me, you know.
unlike I the people that I knew that I've known in the SCA, specifically the folks like in the Elizabethan sweatshop, the friends that I've made in the mid realm, they all have provided me with a reason to keep playing. You would think that after all that we've been through, that we would have thrown in the towel and said, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you.
Fuck
You're cool.
Brainasium, I'm out of
Fuck you
here.
on out.
Yeah.
By the way, that's a half-baked reference for those of you that are aware, and those of you that are not, just look it up on YouTube.
I like to make the grandma's boy reference. Fuck
Mhm.
this, fuck you, fuck Jeff, fuck Brainasium, I'm out of here. Or fuck JP, fuck Brainasium, I'm out of here. Just like,
So, but we're still here, and I make the joke, and I'll let Duckie kind of speak this to why they're still here. I make the joke a lot, kind of jokingly, say that I'm here because being here pisses off all the right people, and that's part of it. I also like to say that I'm surviving purely out of spite, and that's also part of it. But the fact of the matter is that for all of the term the for all of the negative things that have happened to me in this game, for all of the hurt feelings, for all of the feelings of inadequacy, feelings of being left behind, I still believe in what the SCA can and should be. This is where I learned how to be an adult. This is where I learned organize events. This is where I've met my absolute most dearest friends. This is even though my husband and I did not meet in the SCA, we did find out eventually that he was SCA adjacent. In fact, we probably were even in the similar parties at some point at Estrella. We just never crossed paths until we both signed up for soulgeek.com. True story. So I hold on to that. And the fact that, if even with all of the bullshit that I've been through, that I can still hold on to that and have that be my experience. I believe in that so much that I'm willing to continue doing this, even though I know that sometimes it's like beating against the wind, screaming into the void. And I know that change isn't instantaneous. It's not going to happen today or tomorrow or maybe even ever. I mean, I honestly don't know. But I cannot in good conscience walk away from this organization and these people without having said I truly gave it my all. And really the only way that I will leave this organization is if I am basically forced out. And by that I mean my membership is revoked and denied. So I don't believe I will ever do anything to cause that to happen, but I don't know. I just don't know. So
yeah, Kit. Yeah, and since she is Kaid, that makes it a lot harder.
So I'm going to now let Duckie take the floor a little bit here and kind of talk to, if you can tell us why you're still here.
Part of why I'm still here is part of why I did it, part of why I picked up the Gauntlet that day. This is the lowest stakes environment in which I could be protesting. It's my hobby that I do on the weekends, right? If I can't stick around in such a low stakes environment, how am I going to impact change on a higher scale? How am I going to withstand the scrutiny and the hellfire that is changing anything on a larger public scale? Past that, I don't know why I'm here anymore. Frankly, it's cost me every relationship I've ever had. In terms of like my current close household type relationships and friendships, it's cost me a lot of my associations within this game. It's changed how I interact with every level of this game. Like, I can't just get by peacefully. Nope. I got to worry about if the King of Kaid is saying I'm bullying him because I disagree with his opinion on how he's a volunteer. I don't know why I'm here anymore. I just don't.
I'm not going to lie. I don't either, but I'm glad you're here. I am personally glad that you're here. But if this were to be your final SCA appearance or anything that you would do the SCA, it would suck. And I think that we as a society are going to be poor for it, but I understand. And your story is not
not even
unique. It's
no.
not even unique in any way, shape, or form. For all of the good that the SCA does, and it does a lot of good, I can attest to that on a personal level. It is also one of the most difficult, heartbreaking things that you can do, especially if you start off with all of the best intentions and you do all of the things that you are told that you need to do in order to achieve success.
Which I did. I came into this barony and became an officer within 6 months. I was archivist, but I became an officer with it and a paid member within 6 months, so that a different officer could be freed up to become constable instead. I came in and I did all of the things that should have set me up for success. I was deputy everything down here for a good long while. Deputy social media, deputy list, deputy webwrite with Gita. What wasn't I doing for people? You know, I what wasn't I doing for this group of people? To the point that I became seneschal. I said, I am willing to be the legal representative for you all, even though you treated me like shit. And that's one of the bigger things that we could ask of people in this game, because we do not train our legal representatives to actually be effective legal reps. Like me and other older legal reps are advising ones in Calafia right now because they're not getting anything from higher up. Like, we have to outsource and like crowdsource our knowledge from other seneschals because we're not given anything. But those are the legal representatives of your group right there. They're in charge of all the contracts, all the everything. Have fun with that. All the investigations.
And right.
Yeah.
And, my experience in this kingdom, specifically in this barony, where I was accepted the position of exchequer as a favor. Like, I was not looking to become exchequer. I work in the financial services industry. I do this stuff for a living. Why am I going to want to do it in my hobby too? But I saw the need and I was asked and I did it. And all that I got for my trouble was basically the same treatment that I was getting in Atenveld. And
but all those things should have set us up for success. For anybody else, those are things that get you a peerage.
Yeah.
For anybody else.
But not for us, apparently. And why is that? Now, that's a philosophical question, a rhetorical one, really. But
we know the answer.
Yes, we do. But let's let the folks out there decide. Why is it that people like us, who put our blood, sweat, and tears into the society, hold office, try and make this a better place to play in? Why is it that we have been basically advised that we will never be more than what we are now? And at one point I was told by a person who is a real friend of mine now, and who still is a good friend of mine. I don't even think he remembers telling me this. He basically told me at one point that I could literally save the kingdom from financial ruin with my fundraising. And I could literally pull the kingdom out of a fire. And even then, I would never, ever be considered for a peerage.
Mm-hmm.
Ever. And, how do you respond to that? How do you respond to that?
Not that we need them, because we have enacted more change without them than we ever will with them. But the overarching point is more like, one, why do you gotta say that to people? What? Why?
That was a hell of a mind fuck, let me tell you. It's still today, 15 years later, I think. Yeah, because it was about, I want to say 15 years ago.
And I heard a lot of similar stuff right after I did this, by people who were in the same breath calling me their peer.
Right. That's the other part. I would see people get offered their peerage, and I would go to congratulate them, and they would whisper in my ear, "It should have been you."
Yeah, it's happened.
How do you react to that?
It's happened a number of times since then to both of us.
Right.
And how do you react to that?
Without, going postal, for lack of a better term.
Because it never will be.
Oh, it never will. I mean, they say, "Oh yes, there's things you can do and blah blah blah." But
there's education on the part of the SCA that can be done. There's nothing that you or I or anybody like us has to do to change. Not a thing. Every single peerage council needs a DEIB liaison, and you all need to be educating yourselves on how to actually be more inclusive, because you, like the board, are a self-selecting clique. So you know what?
And
You're going to get founder's bias like the board every damn time.
so, for those of you that have stuck around, this has been a longer episode than normal. Normally I try to keep this at about an hour, but I felt it was important to kind of share this information because it needed to be said, first off. And second, the announcement that was made about last week about the Gauntlet challenge being moved from the coronation ceremony to the to crown tournament, the ceremony that invests the heirs. Um, that's what triggered this podcast, and that's what triggered this episode. But and
Nobody's going to pick it up again. And maybe Ivan Kovanovich. That son of a bitch is a strong son of a bitch. Maybe Ivan Kovanovich of Kaid might pick it up. But I don't think anybody's picking it up again because, like I said in my comment, they've made it more effective, but they have not made it easier. Because now, instead of just going through a sea of steel swords like I did, you're going through actual armed combatants. So while they've made it more effective, they haven't made it easier. And the fact that I know that it almost didn't happen because of who I am as a person, because again, I've been talked about for 2.5 years and not talked to, is bullshit. It should have been changed immediately after I did it, not 2.5 years later, first of all. If it's going to have any sort of effective real change, it should have been done then. Secondly, none of any of me, if you were not going to talk to me, none of any of me should have come into this decision. Brock and Valentine. None of it. None of it, Shiv's Council or Knight's Council. None of me should have come into this. And I shouldn't have known about this announcement weeks ahead of time because you leak shit because you aren't secretive. Like, this should have happened a lot sooner. But it's not going to happen again because nobody's going to deal with 2.5 years of being talked about. Nobody's going to deal with being called Colin Kaepernick again. And nobody I know except for Ivan lacks the aspirations to stand up to everybody in this kingdom and tell them that they're wrong, because that kills any social currency you have and any social up motivation that you have as well. And everybody in this kingdom wants to be a peer. Everybody in this kingdom's afraid of the social currency running out and the chopping block coming down on them. And somebody like Laura Giles and Giuseppe, who have now moved, or Tetch, or somebody like some big bully coming down and saying they're not popular anymore, they're not relevant anymore. So they're not going to make this social hit that I did. They're not going to commit social suicide.
So that's something to consider for those of you that are listening to this podcast now and in the repeat. What is the line? And are you, and I say and are you willing to cross it? That's ultimately the question that everyone needs to ask themselves.
In the game and out.
Yeah, because again, this is not a game to us. We can't just take off our skin or our identity at the gate.
Nope.
We can't just not be who we are, not bring our experiences, our lived in life into this game.
And people are only asking us to do that so that they don't get called out on their bigotry. That's the truth of that. That people don't want to have to actually grow and learn in their free time, which they need to be doing. And so when they say, we don't want the politics in the game, no, you're politicizing human beings, and you don't want my experience and your bigotry to be called out. You don't want the opportunity to be there for you to show your ass when you make an anti-trans and anti-racist, or when you make an anti-trans comment or a racist comment or anything else. That's what you're really saying. You would like white comfortability rather than the fucking truth.
And unfortunately, and maybe to our detriment, we just can't. We just are not wired that way.
I was born indigenous as fuck.
I was born whoever I am. I don't even know anymore sometimes. But we are here and we are still here. And on a personal level, I'm not going anywhere. Like the virtual Herald is not going to go away. Again, like I have stated. Oh,
Yep.
no politics is a red flag for anyone whose existence has been politicized against our will. That's once again the editor who is the editor.
The editor's
speaks.
real good with words.
Yeah, the editor knows her shit. So all of that to say, what now? How do we go from here? Where do we go from here? Well, I know what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be flying to Salt Lake City in 2 weeks to attend the second quarter SCA Board of Directors meeting. I will be covering that. I will be on my Discord, chatting and covering it while the meeting is going on. And then I will have a couple of short broadcasts. One during the midway meeting, and then the other one a longer session after the fact, just to kind of recap everything. After that, I will be attending Starcoffin anniversary and investiture. I have volunteered to set up and man the arts and sciences activities for the barony, because the person who is the current arts and sciences minister won't be able to get on site early due to a medical appointment.
Well, that's important for him.
Yes, and I will continue playing the SCA the way I want to play it, and I'm able to do so because, quite frankly, I have the privilege to be able to travel. And like I said earlier, if there's no such thing as a day trip in Starcoffin, I am not going to limit myself to Southern California.
I wish I had the privilege that you do, but after divorces and other things, I don't.
So I will be attending the East Kingdom Rapier Crown. I'll be there to witness SCA history. I will also be, I'm also considering attending Avakal's 10th anniversary coronation.
Are you helping with Bard of Caid at Starcoffin Investiture? Because apparently that's happening.
Oh, I wasn't even aware of that. And I don't know. Do you really need me to be Bard of Caid?
Well, it sounds like the Bard of Caid competition is happening, at least according to this, Laurel.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great. But ultimately, I'm not going anywhere. I will continue to play the SCA how I want to play it. I will continue to do what I feel is right. And I have the support and the mental fortitude to be able to do so. That's me. I can't speak for Duckie. And I don't know. And Duckie, you don't even need to share what you're going to do or what's next for you if you don't want to.
I know I'm going to Starcoffin Anniversary and Investiture. Oh, this is a big comment. Hi, Gabe. Now I have to peek over the top.
The transparency to call things out that are wrong in the moment, to correct things before they get worse. I am saddened that it took 2 years to get this done, but I was playing much when this happened. Nor was Crescent at the time. I am making up for lost time for sure. However, I can support, answer questions, or provide further info as to why I pushed this change when I did, and I'm more than willing to answer you. For me, and then it kind of just.
And then it's the email, yeah. But
Yeah.
And Gabe, I think that you did come in late, and you did what you could after the fact. There were other officers who could have pushed to this change. And I know the Knights Council was talking about it and has been, because again, those are a bunch of leaky motherfuckers. So they also, the change didn't just have to come from you, bud, but I'm happy that you pushed it when you did. Just as a note. But for what I'm doing, I know I'm going to Starcoffin Investiture for sure, because I do want to try to support Eli and Elinor. They've been given a shit stick. And they well, I'm not really doing any better. Community doesn't wait for support, it just asks for it. So I gotta support them getting the shit stick too. I
And
am one of the base camp stewards for Potrero, so I'm doing that. Even
uh,
though I put in to be one of the stewards for Potrero, which after 15 years and the things that I've done should have been more in line with the goal for running things like a business, but that's a whole separate can of worms. Um, but past that, I don't know. Um, like I said, I've set myself adrift from the inept engineers, so I'm not really one of them either. I'm not really particularly on good terms with the barony after everything that we've gone through with them. So I don't have a community in the SCA much anymore. So I don't know what I'm doing. We'll see.
that's all we can ask for. I mean, that's really all we can ask for. And I think that on a final note, before we wrap this up, and again, this has been one of our longer broadcasts. Get out of my way, cat. Is we share this information. People are going to listen to this and think, "Oh, they're just stirring the pot," or they're just, why you got to bring up old shit. That's I can feel it. I can just feel it in the little back of my head, like little antenna. But to those people, I say this: it's not old shit. It's the
It just
same
got
old
ch-
shit.
it just got changed, so it can't really be old shit.
Mm-hmm. It's the same shit that has been happening for years. And the only difference is that in this year of our Lord 2025, it is no longer it can no longer be pushed under the rug. It can no longer be ignored. It being told that it's going to be handled internally is not going to cut it anymore. I've been told that for years.
Yeah.
Whenever things happen to me, Duckie can attest to that as well, and I'm sure that everyone out there in SCA land has had the similar story about how something happened and they were told it was going to be handled internally, and it wasn't. Well, I'm pretty sure that nothing that we've discussed today is going to get handled either. And it really, I mean, and how can you handle it? Like you guys said, it's 2.5 years ago. But that doesn't mean that it didn't happen. And that doesn't mean that people cannot take our experience and what we and our knowledge and use that to maybe think and consider and do better, because it may not ever happen to us. I may be forever and ever the virtual herald. Amen. Duckie may not return to the SCA after they have completed their current commitments. For us, it is what it is. But to that new person who is just starting out, the person who has bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and wants to make a difference in this game, think about that person and think about how you want their success to be like. And maybe, just maybe, you can treat that person better than you have treated others.
Stop pulling the ladder up behind you.
So, on that happy note, I'm going to go ahead and call this a day. Thank you so much, Duckie, for your time, for your candor, for your voice. I know that I've said this before, and I will say it again. You are one of my closest friends, and even if you decide that after Potrero you're done with the SCA, that does not mean that we are done as friends. The
Yeah.
Joe and Duckie show will continue, whether or not it's a Spotify playlist or a road trip to Death Valley to the Paiute Weed Shop.
Let's do it.
You will always and forever be a friend of my heart. And I love you deeply, and I am so happy
I love you as well.
to be a friend. So until next time, folks, this has been the Virtual Herald along with Duckie. Wishing you all a wonderful evening, a good weekend, and until next time, stay safe and do better. Bye bye.